My son was 18. 18 years of joy, of sleepless nights, of first steps and scraped knees, of proud school plays and awkward teenage phases. 18 years of believing I knew everything there was to know about my perfect, chaotic, wonderful family. 18 years of building a life, a home, a future, brick by carefully placed brick, on foundations I thought were solid as rock. And then, in a single breath, the man I called my husband, the man who was Ethan's father in every sense of the word, shattered it all. He confessed, his voice barely a whisper, his eyes haunted by 2 decades of unspoken guilt. He is not your child. The words hung in the air, thick and suffocating, like a phantom limb ache in a body that no longer exists. I remember the exact moment, the exact setting. It was a Tuesday evening. Ethan was out with friends, celebrating something trivial, something joyous, as 18-year-olds do. Mark and I were in the living room, the quiet hum of the dishwasher, our only companion. He had been distant for weeks, withdrawn, his usual easy smile replaced by a permanent furrow in his brow. I'd attributed it to stress at work, to the natural anxieties of parenthood as our only child teetered on the brink of adulthood. I'd tried to coax him out of it, offered back rubs, cooked his favorite meals, suggested a weekend getaway. He'd just shake his head, mumble something about being tired, and retreat further into himself. That night, though, was different. He sat across from me, a half-empty mug of tea growing cold in his hands. His gaze was fixed on the intricate pattern of the rug, anywhere but on me. I asked him, gently, if everything was okay. I told him I was worried, that he seemed to be carrying the weight of the world. He took a deep breath, so deep it sounded like a sob trying to escape, and then he spoke. Those 7 words that ripped apart the fabric of my reality, leaving me gasping for air in a vacuum of betrayal and disbelief. He is not your child. My first thought was a bizarre, almost comical, misunderstanding. Was he talking about a fictional character? A pet? My mind scrambled, trying to find any context, any explanation that would make sense of such a monstrous statement. I laughed, a short, sharp, disbelieving sound that barely escaped my throat. What are you talking about, Mark? Of course, he's my child. He's our child. Ethan. He finally looked at me, and what I saw in his eyes wasn't anger or malice, but a raw, agonizing pain, an ocean of regret. It was the look of a man who had been drowning for years and was finally, desperately, reaching for air, no matter the cost. His voice was hoarse, strained. No, Sarah, he isn't. Not biologically. He's not mine. And because he's not mine, he can't be yours. Not in the way you think. The world tilted. The room spun. The familiar comfort of our living room became a hostile, alien space. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. What are you saying? I managed to whisper, the words barely audible. Are you saying you're not his father? He nodded slowly, agonizingly. Yes, that's what I'm saying. I'm not his biological father. And then, a new wave of horror, cold and sharp, washed over me. If he wasn't Ethan's biological father, and Ethan was my son, then how? The logical leap was instantaneous, terrifying. But if you're not, then who is? And how could I not know? Mark, what are you talking about? This is insane. His confession unspooled like a macabre tapestry, each thread a lie, each pattern a deception I had unknowingly lived within for nearly 2 decades. He told me about an affair, a fleeting, desperate mistake born of loneliness and regret that had happened right around the time we were trying to conceive. We had been married for 2 years, struggling with infertility. Month after month, the disappointment, the silent tears, the aching emptiness. We'd gone through tests, treatments, the emotional roller coaster of hope and despair. The pressure had been immense, gnawing at the edges of our otherwise happy marriage. He described a work trip, a conference in another city, a night fueled by alcohol and vulnerability. A colleague, someone he barely knew, also feeling the strains of a difficult marriage. A lapse in judgment, he called it. A moment of weakness that spiraled into a lifetime of deceit. He swore it was a one-time thing, a regret he'd carried like a stone in his gut ever since. When I finally became pregnant, just a few weeks after that trip, it was the answer to our prayers. We were ecstatic. We cried tears of joy, celebrated with family, planned a nursery. Mark was overcome with relief, he said. Relief that we were finally going to have a child. Relief that the pressure was off. And in that relief, he said, he buried the truth so deep, he almost convinced himself it never happened. He rationalized it, told himself it was a miracle, a blessing from above, a chance to start fresh. He convinced himself that the timing was ambiguous enough, that the chances were slim. He convinced himself that his love for me, his desire for a family, outweighed the truth. He watched me, my belly growing, my face alight with the glow of impending motherhood. He felt my son kick for the first time. He held my hand through labor. He cut the umbilical cord. He was the first one to hold Ethan, to whisper promises into his tiny ear. He was there for every vaccination, every scraped knee, every proud moment. He was, in every conceivable way, Ethan's father. And for 18 years, I believed him. I believed in us. The shock was so profound, it manifested physically. My hands trembled uncontrollably. My breath hitched in my chest. A cold sweat broke out on my skin. I couldn't process it. It was too big, too monumental, too utterly devastating. Everything I thought I knew, every memory, every tender moment, every shared laugh, every quiet understanding, it was all tainted, overshadowed by this colossal lie. How could you? I finally choked out, the words raw and laced with a venom I didn't know I possessed. How could you do this to me? To us? To Ethan? He had no answer. Only more tears, more apologies, more desperate pleas for understanding. He said he loved me, that he loved Ethan more than life itself. He swore he never wanted to hurt us. He swore he lived in constant fear of this day, of the truth unraveling. He explained how he had tried to tell me so many times, but the words would catch in his throat. How he saw my happiness, Ethan's adoration for him, and couldn't bear to shatter it. The deeper the lie burrowed, the harder it became to extract. It became a part of him, a silent cancer eating away at his soul. But it wasn't just his soul. It was mine. It was Ethan's. It was the very essence of our family. I spent the next few days in a fog. I moved through the motions of life, but my mind was a chaotic storm. Every memory of Ethan's childhood was replayed through a new, horrifying lens. His baby pictures, his first steps, his laughter was Mark looking at him, knowing the truth, all those years. Was he watching me, knowing I was living a lie? The betrayal was a living thing, gnawing at my insides. And then there was Ethan, our wonderful, vibrant, intelligent Ethan, on the cusp of his own life. His 18th birthday was just weeks away. We had planned a big celebration, a weekend trip, a dinner with all our loved ones. How could I look at him, knowing this? How could I celebrate his entry into adulthood when the very foundation of his identity was about to be obliterated? The hardest part was the silence. Mark was still there, a ghost in our house. He tried to talk, to explain, to apologize, but his words were meaningless to me. All I could hear was the echo of his lie. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. My world had shrunk to the size of this unspeakable secret, and it threatened to swallow me whole. I felt a profound sense of loss, not just for my marriage, which felt irrevocably broken, but for the innocence of my past, for the belief that my life was my own, built on truth and love. It was as if someone had gone back in time and rewritten my history, inserting a dark, twisted chapter I never signed up for. My son, my beautiful boy, was still my son. My heart knew that, my soul knew that. But the biological reality, the cold, hard facts, had been ripped away, leaving a gaping wound. The question of what to do next loomed immense and terrifying. Mark predictably pleaded with me not to tell Ethan. He reasoned that it would destroy him, that it would serve no purpose other than to inflict unimaginable pain. He argued that he was Ethan's father, that biology was secondary to love and upbringing. He said that telling Ethan would tear our family apart, not just our marriage, but Ethan's relationship with both of us. He begged me to consider the stability we had provided, the love, the sacrifices. He appealed to my love for Ethan, saying that protecting him from this truth was the ultimate act of parental love. Part of me, a small, fearful part, wanted to agree, to bury the secret again, to pretend, to rebuild, to spare Ethan the agony. But another part, a fierce, primal part, raged against the injustice. How could I continue to live a lie? How could I look my son in the eye, knowing I was withholding such a fundamental truth about his identity? He was 18, an adult. He had a right to know. He had a right to his own history, his own lineage, his own truth, no matter how painful. The thought of him discovering it later, perhaps accidentally, or worse, after Mark and I were gone, was unbearable. The resentment, the feeling of betrayal would be tenfold. The decision was mine, and it felt like carrying the weight of the universe. I consulted no one. How could I? This was too intimate, too devastating to share with friends or family, not yet. This was a burden I had to bear alone, at least for a little while. I spent sleepless nights pacing, arguing with myself, envisioning every possible scenario, every potential fallout. The day came when I knew I couldn't delay it any longer. Ethan's birthday was approaching fast, and the idea of celebrating under this dark cloud was abhorrent. I had to tell him. It was the only way to begin to heal, for all of us. I sat Mark down, my voice firm despite the tremor in my hands. We are telling him, Mark, together. And you are going to tell him the truth, every single detail. He looked defeated, his face ashen, but he nodded. He knew there was no escaping it now. The dam had broken. We chose a Saturday afternoon. Ethan was home, engrossed in a video game, his laughter occasionally echoing from his room. A normal, mundane Saturday, the kind that would forever be etched in my memory as the day everything changed. We called him into the living room. He came in, a slight frown on his face, sensing the unusual gravity in our voices. "What's up? Everything okay?" he asked, his eyes darting between our tense faces. I took a deep breath, clutching Mark's hand, though I felt no comfort from his touch. "Ethan," I began, my voice cracking, "your father and we have something very important to tell you. Something that's going to be very difficult to hear." Mark then took over, his voice raspy, broken. He didn't sugarcoat it. He laid out the story, the affair, the timing, the fear, the years of silence. He spoke of his love for Ethan, his regret, his deep remorse. He told him how sorry he was for the deception, for the pain he was about to inflict. Ethan listened, his face slowly draining of color. His initial confusion morphed into shock, then disbelief, then a cold, quiet fury. He sat rigidly, his hands clenched into fists on his lap. He didn't interrupt, didn't cry, didn't shout. He just listened, his eyes wide and unblinking, fixed on Mark, as if trying to discern a stranger in the man he had called Dad for 18 years. When Mark finished, the silence was deafening. Ethan finally spoke, his voice low, controlled, but laced with a searing pain. "Is this true?" he asked, not looking at Mark, But at me. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. Yes, son. It's true. So, ... You're not my dad? He asked Mark, his voice barely a whisper, the question hanging like an executioner's axe. Mark couldn't speak. He just shook his head, tears pouring down his own face. Ethan stood up abruptly, knocking his chair over with a clatter that echoed in the silent room. You lied to me, he said, his voice rising, breaking. Both of you. For my entire life, you lied to me. He looked at Mark, his eyes blazing with a hurt so profound it was almost unbearable to witness. Everything was a lie. Every time you told me you loved me, every time you taught me how to ride my bike, how to throw a ball, how to drive, ... Was it all a lie? No, Ethan. I cried, trying to reach for him. No, the love was real. Everything else was real. He is your father, in every way that matters. But he wasn't listening. He was consumed by the fire of betrayal. I don't even know who I am, he whispered, his voice cracking, tears finally starting to fall down his own cheeks. Who am I? Who is my real father? He stormed out, slamming the front door behind him. We didn't know where he went or who he went to. We just sat there, Mark and I, in the ruins of our shattered family, listening to the silence, the echo of his pain, a chilling presence. The days that followed were a blur of agony and uncertainty. Ethan didn't come home that night. He stayed with a friend, refusing to answer our calls or texts. When he finally did return, days later, he was a different person. Guarded, withdrawn, his eyes filled with a deep sadness that pierced my soul. He moved through the house like a stranger, avoiding eye contact, barely speaking. Our family, once a vibrant tapestry, had unraveled into loose, fraying threads. Mark was devastated, consumed by guilt. He tried to talk to Ethan, to apologize, to explain, but Ethan would just walk away. The bond they once shared, so deep and unwavering, was now a chasm of resentment and mistrust. Ethan felt betrayed by Mark for the lie, and by me for not telling him sooner, for being complicit in the deception, even if I was an unwitting participant for most of it. I tried to bridge the gap, to explain my own shock, my own pain, my own struggle with the truth. I reminded him that my love for him was absolute, unconditional, and entirely unaffected by this revelation. But he was hurting too much to hear it. He was navigating an identity crisis, grappling with the sudden realization that his entire genetic history was a blank slate. He started asking questions I couldn't answer. Who was his biological father? Did he have siblings out there? What kind of person was he? These questions, once purely academic, were now raw, urgent, and deeply personal. The search for answers began, driven by Ethan's desperate need for identity. Mark, in a final act of atonement, provided the name of the woman from the conference. It was a name I didn't recognize, a fleeting ghost from Mark's past. Through a private investigator, a complex and emotionally charged journey began. We learned the woman's name was Susan, and she had moved across the country years ago. She was married with 2 children, and according to the investigator, her husband was not aware of the affair or of Ethan's existence. The idea of contacting her, of dropping this bombshell into another unsuspecting family's life, was fraught with ethical dilemmas. But Ethan was firm. He needed to know. He wrote a letter, a heartfelt, agonizing plea for information, for understanding, for a connection to his biological roots. We sent it through the investigator, shielding ourselves, and Susan, from direct, immediate contact. The response, when it came, was hesitant, cautious, but ultimately open. Susan confirmed Mark's story. She confessed to her own regret, her own burden of guilt. She revealed that Ethan's biological father was not her husband, but a man she had dated briefly before meeting her current husband, a man she had reconnected with during that conference trip, who happened to be attending the same event as Mark. It was a convoluted, almost unbelievable twist within the initial twist. Mark was not the biological father, but he thought he was. And the biological father was someone else entirely, a man we had no knowledge of, a man who likely had no idea he had a son. This added another layer of complexity, another layer of shock. Ethan's biological father was not even the man Mark had believed him to be. It was a true stranger. Susan provided a name, David. She explained that she had been just as lost and confused as Mark, and when she got pregnant, she had convinced herself it was her then partner's child, the man she later married. The timeline was fuzzy. The emotional turmoil of that period had clouded her judgment, and she had buried her own secrets. This meant Mark had carried a secret, based on a mistaken belief about the biological father, only for that belief to be wrong too. The irony was almost unbearable. Ethan, now armed with a name, began another search. This was his journey, and I stood by him, offering support, love, and a steady presence. He eventually found David, a man living a quiet life in another state, seemingly unaware of the dramatic ripple effect of a long-forgotten encounter. The initial contact was cautious, tentative. David was, understandably, stunned. His reaction was a mix of shock, disbelief, and a profound sense of responsibility he never knew he had. He had a family, children, a life that was suddenly upended by the existence of an 18-year-old son he never knew about. The process of forging a relationship with David was slow, painful, and often awkward. There were no immediate Hollywood-style reunions. It was a delicate dance of getting to know a stranger who shared his DNA, who held pieces of his past. Ethan learned about David's family, his interests, his personality. He found some physical resemblances, some shared quirks, which brought him a strange sense of comfort and belonging. But it was not a replacement for the father he had known. In the midst of all this, my marriage to Mark crumbled. The betrayal was too deep, the trust too fractured to mend. We tried, for a time, to go to counseling, to salvage what we had. But every conversation inevitably circled back to the lie, to the 18 years of deception, to the gaping wound it had left in our lives. The love was still there, in some form, a ghost of what it once was, but it was overshadowed by resentment and a sense of having lived a fabricated reality. We separated and eventually divorced. It was amicable in the sense that there was no shouting, no fighting over possessions. Just a quiet, heartbreaking acknowledgement that some things, once broken, cannot be fully repaired. Ethan's relationship with Mark was also irrevocably changed. The initial rage softened into a simmering sadness, a distant respect for the man who had raised him, but the intimacy, the easy affection, was gone. Mark continued to be present in Ethan's life, attending his college graduation, offering advice, always there if Ethan needed him. He never stopped loving Ethan, never stopped trying to atone for his actions, but he was no longer dead in the same unquestioning way. He was Mark, the man who had raised him, and who had also held a devastating secret. As for me, I learned profound lessons about truth, forgiveness, and the resilience of the human spirit. I had to forgive Mark, not for him, but for myself, to release the bitterness that was consuming me. I had to forgive myself for not knowing, for living in a dream. Most importantly, I had to reaffirm my identity as Ethan's mother. Biology might dictate one thing, but love, nurture, and shared life experiences dictate another. He was and always would be my son, in every fiber of my being. The years that followed were a testament to the unexpected twists life throws our way. Ethan, through immense strength and maturity, navigated this complex web of paternity. He developed a relationship with David, his biological father, a connection that brought him a sense of completeness he hadn't known he was missing. He learned to appreciate Mark for the father he was, acknowledging the love and dedication despite the monumental lie. and he learned to cherish me, his mother, for being his unwavering anchor through the storm. Our family, once a simple triangle, became a sprawling, complex constellation. There were new relationships, new boundaries, new definitions of what it meant to be family. It was messy, often painful, but it was also a testament to the human capacity for adaptation and growth. This story, this unbelievable twist in the tapestry of our lives, taught me that foundations can crumble, but new ones can be built. It taught me that identity is not solely defined by genetics, but by love, by shared experiences, by the choices we make, and by the people who show up for us, day after day, year after year. It taught me that even in the deepest betrayals, there can be a path to healing, to understanding, and to a new kind of peace. My son was 18 when his world, and mine, was turned upside down, but he emerged stronger, more compassionate, more self-aware. And I, too, emerged changed, scarred, but undeniably stronger. The unexpected twists in life are not always easy, but they are often the crucible in which our truest selves are forged. They force us to confront our deepest fears, to question our realities, and ultimately, to redefine what truly matters. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever faced an unexpected twist that changed everything, please consider subscribing to the channel and sharing your thoughts in the comments below. Your experiences remind us that we are never alone in navigating life's incredible and often bewildering journeys.